I'm Kyle from the Shift Home Finance community, and today I'm joined with Nick from Bankifi. Now, Bankifi is one of the early members of Shift, and it's a very exciting story, and I'll let you jump straight into it. Tell me, what does Bankifi do? What problems do you solve? What solutions do you provide?
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me, Kyle. Thanks for having me, really appreciate it. So Bankifi, founded 2017. We are a provider to banks of technology and other services, which I'll touch on in a second, but we don't often like being referred to as a fintech, more because we are very heavily weighted towards the tech in fintech, and also given our kind of bank-friendly stance, if you like. Fintech sometimes holds connotations of disruption, competition, etc., and that's not our aim. So in terms of exactly what we do, in terms of what technology we provide to banks, we essentially provide a suite of services, digital services, that allow banks to better service business banking customers from within their own digital channels. A couple of years ago, one of the consultancies or advisory agencies referred to the kinds of services that we provide as beyond banking services. I'm certainly not talking here about enabling rail bookings or car rentals or whatever else from within your banking
not doing
app.
everything.
It's very much providing a set of services that allow businesses to manage their finances, more of their finances from within a single place. So things like helping them pay and get paid, helping them manage their cash flow, insights into their cash flow, and taking actions off the back of those insights, things like managing their tax, and simple access to working capital finance. So for us, it's very much about providing a suite of services that make a digital banking channel more engaging for business banking customers. And for that reason, we describe ourselves as an engagement banking provider.
Okay, perfect. Engagement banking provider providing what is essentially the whole suite of financial services that a business owner needs to run their business. And it's awesome what you're doing. And touching on the point you said at the start there, that's very similar to how we look at fintech. We still call it fintech, but going through the trusted and reliable channels of financial institutions, we believe is always the best way forward. Trying to compete in a world where you have such tough regulation and you have slow-moving banks, fintechs are so complementary to their solutions that why don't you work with them, essentially? And on that point, you're helping founders, you're going through this process of going through the bank, not direct to SMEs. How did Bankifi start? Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. You talk about all the benefits there of incumbent financial institutions and technology companies, whether they regard themselves as fintechs or they're a bit more specific like we are, but yeah. You talk about all the kind of benefits of going through a trusted party there. I think, and this touches on how we were founded, it was kind of a natural fit for us because our senior management team, in some instances, and they'll remain nameless, but for more than 30 years in their career, but all of us as a group or a senior management team, have always provided technology to banks for the benefits of businesses. So prior to the company being founded in 2017, a couple of my colleagues on the senior management team had run kind of cash management and payments businesses starting out in the 90s before the internet was even a thing. One of those businesses, S1 Corporation, was acquired by ACI Worldwide, and then subsequently to that started up a payments hub called the Open Payment Framework, which settled all kinds of payments, from faster payments to BACS to CHAPS, SWIFT, etc., and wires. Before that was subsequently acquired by FIS about 10 years ago now. So throughout our careers, I mean, myself, I did something for 10 years before Bankifi, which was very much in the same sort of ethos as a technical provider to banks. What I did for 10 years was up at the sort of multinational corporate level, helping them with their accounts payable processes using commercial virtual cards. So integrating what is essentially a central form of settlement and a virtual card into procurement processes, treasury management systems, ERPs, travel booking systems, etc. Just giving more and more employees or non-FTEs traveling on behalf of corporates ways to pay without having to incur that expense themselves. So all of us at some juncture in our careers or throughout our careers and at various different places, etc., have this experience of being providers to banks essentially. So it was a very natural fit. It gave us the benefit of experience of knowing how banks operate, which is obviously important in the terms of you have to be patient, you have to put up and operate within the heavily regulated environment in which they operate and absorb and incur some of the downstream things that they expect.
And the waiting times.
Exactly, and all the compliance and certifications and accreditations. But also kind of experience of how they work and how their systems work and what you need to embed services like ours within their systems. We always wear that dual lens, so we have banks as our primary client and look through the things that we do and how they're solving problems and pain points for them. But also given that we've always provided technology through banks, which ultimately has been of the benefit to businesses, particularly in payments, that again, Bankifi was a natural fit in that regard in terms of helping businesses pay, get paid, and to your point, manage their wider financial admin all from their digital banking channels.
Well, it's also the experience, like ex-founders, they've already gone through the process, they know what they need to manage as a business owner for their finances, because you've got dual ends. Bank is your client distributor, but the end user is still the small business owner.
Absolutely, and we kind of look at that in terms of the way we manage our own finances. We naturally use our own products, but again, it comes back to your point on the experiences. We have seen and had first-hand experiences, varying in length of time, about how businesses of all size typically tend to operate and pay and get paid, etc. So yeah, it's looking at it again through that dual lens and really understanding the problems that we're solving, both from the bank as our primary client, but also the end user who is the beneficiary of the technology.
Brilliant. And that's Bankifi, history of bit of your work, bit of the other founders' work, but so you sitting here today, tell us a little bit about who's Nick, when did you join the mission, and what's your role in Bankifi?
Yeah, I joined Bankifi April 2021, and like I said, after 10 years at my previous company. What attracted me to Bankifi, I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record here, but having spent 10 years working in, let's call it tech rather than fintech, but as a provider to banks, it was a natural fit, given the experience of the people involved and the exit history in particular that they'd had. That was a natural attraction as well. So yeah, that was the primary motivation for joining Bankifi. Joined as a sales executive, have since gone on to become a head of strategic growth. Essentially, I work with our existing bank clients and also our prospective bank clients on understanding how they can best use our services, embed them within their channels and solve strategic pain points that they have within their organisations. So that's my role. In terms of how that's played out in practice, certainly quite well from our perspective. We've gone on to acquire 7 bank clients across the UK, the US and Australasia. We may go on to talk about, I imagine we will go on to talk about open banking a little bit later. Whilst there are noises within each of those regions and the various different flavours and labels they've given to open banking, it's a really important point that we leverage open banking and certainly the nicely regulated framework here within the UK to do what we do, but we're very agnostic of payment systems, etc., and can make our technology work all over the globe. And business banking customers or business checking account customers, whatever you want to call them, wherever you are in the world, they generally have the same problems the world over. So I think one of the biggest things that has resonated here in the UK, and this goes back a little bit to why Bankifi was founded, was sort of mid-2010s, we recognised and anticipated that the impending legislation, regulatory changes, things like GDPR, open banking, consumer duty, would have quite a transformative effect on the way consumers and businesses consume digital services when they are doing things like managing their business finances. So what we've seen as a result of that is lots of digital service providers really owning the digital relationship with businesses and consumers. And as a result, banks have become, in certain instances, a pipe of data or a commodity that feeds somebody else's experience.
They're no longer going through the traditional channels, they're going through someone else to get their banking data.
Exactly, and that presents problems for banks on a couple of fronts, mainly because they spend quite a lot of money developing and maintaining their digital channels, but more importantly, it's a real key source of engagement with businesses. Really reverse that trend and help them to become disruptors in business banking rather than being disrupted. Yeah. And like I say, that presents opportunities for them within that space. So that's why the company was set up, the journey that we've been on, and where we are today.
Amazing. And then Bankifi, as I said, one of the earliest members, Mark, one of the co-founders, was quoted in the original Woodhurst Open Finance white paper, which led to the birth of Shift. So let's take it back a bit then of how did you guys kind of find the community? How did you join? And then also, through your time at Shift, you've then joined Shift Plus program. You've got Nav as your success manager. And how's that program been helping you reach the next steps? And how do you hope we can continue to support you in the future?
Yeah, so like you say, we were one of the founding members of the Shift Open Finance community. And we have been exponents of open banking, open finance, open data to a certain extent. I know the definitions, everybody's definitions or interpretations of, well, not open banking, but open finance and open data may vary to a certain extent. But we've been exponents of allowing businesses to bring their data into digital banking channels through consensual access. So accounting data, payments data, tax data especially, and there's lots of legislation coming down the line which makes those kinds of things important. But from the very beginning, we've been kind of exponents of sort of that open model. And what we liked about the Shift vision was the community of similar like-minded companies, in certain cases visionaries in terms of where the open finance agenda was going, and helping to develop or bring along the open finance agenda in a collaborative manner. So that was initially the very early days, and as an example, to use kind of maybe a very simple description of the kinds of ways in which that community benefited us, particular pain points that were felt with the open banking industry. At that stage, it was usually the way in which the banks, unfortunately, had exposed their APIs or not exposed their APIs, as the case may have been. And there were people, like-minded people trying to do similar kinds of things, had those similar pain points and were able to share stories of how they'd come around it, etc. As time moved on, it's become a great community for collaboration and presenting partnership opportunities. I look at the partnership model in two ways: the partnership with Shift itself, which obviously has progressed. I'll talk about that in a second, but also sort of partnerships within that community as well. Now, we've got a couple of partnerships that predated Shift, but we have some fellow members within Shift who are those existing partners, and it's presented other partnership opportunities as well. So the partnership at the top overarching level is Shift, and then within the community and the members underneath as well.
And also with Woodhurst for the consulting angle to each financial institution.
Absolutely, and this talks a little bit as to why we've kind of taken it to the next level with Shift Plus. So what we also like about the community is how it's evolved over time. So the initial community of techs, like I say, trying to drive along the open finance agenda, but then what you guys and Woodhurst are doing, kind of sitting at the intersection of the traditional so you have your community of champions within the financial services community, you're sitting at the intersection of that and the the tech companies that each are trying to solve very specific and strategic problems within the space. And for that reason, it was a natural fit, given the audience that we're trying to reach, to team up with you guys in terms of the Shift Plus membership. So, it's been really interesting and really useful, really helpful in that regard, and we're looking forward to seeing what else you guys are up to and learning more all the time as always.
Definitely. I was going to say, we've loved working with you. It's been one of our favourite partnerships, and I'm really excited for what the future holds. Speaking of the future, Bankifi, next 5 years, what's on the roadmap? Anything exciting coming up? Is there any developments which may happen alongside the open finance stream as well? What's the next 5 years looking like for you?
Okay, so most immediately, got big new exciting client coming on board in the first half of next year.
Can't say the name yet.
Frustratingly, you guys know I can't. And I think that challenge I outlined earlier, I'll maybe embellish on it. Sorry, when I say challenge, the challenge that the incumbents within the business banking space. I think we're really starting to see that resonate in a couple of other areas as well. We're privy to kind of conversations and various tenders or RFIs that are out there which suggest that there's a lot of attention on this space at the moment. We know some of the recurring themes that we are seeing is the want to provide a more engaging services to businesses to counter declining deposits and balances across business banking books. That could be a combination of deposit leakage to organisations who are sort of chipping away and nipping at the heels of the incumbents. It's also very simply declining Sybil's and Bibbles balances as those have been paid off over time. Lots of businesses are multi-banked now and multi-apped for that matter. So the attention for eyeballs on the digital channels is increasing. So there's a lot of focus on relationship primacy in that regard. So all of this is a very long way of me trying to say that we've got a lot going on within this market at the moment. And that's certainly with the implementation of the new client and potentially others further along the line is going to keep us very busy for the next 12, 18 months.
Yeah, by the sounds of it, it feels like you've been building, and now the wave is kind of finally crashing and you're seeing all of that momentum going forward. And it's, well, that's what we hope. Okay, and just kind of final question here. Forget Bankifi, forget Shift. Nick, financial services industry, what future innovations, new developments, what excites you? What do you think will be really exciting in the next few years?
I'm going to be really boring and not give you one specific example. I mean, the natural inclination at the moment tends to be to lean towards AI. And I've got to be really honest, beyond trying to make my own working day more productive, I haven't had many particularly deep experiences with AI at the moment. The segment we're trying to reach is naturally very risk averse and cautious over that. So I think you'll see some productivity, employee productivity benefits first and foremost. Exactly. What I would say is that given the current macroeconomic environment and that has been in the place for the past couple of years, and certainly with the events of the recent weeks, it looks like it is going to continue for a while to come yet. I think there's a real opportunity for incumbents and the technology industry in general to be really creative to help people overcome those kinds of challenges. And I'm always kind of one of the first experimenters of anything that comes on the market in my personal life to try and take advantage of that. And I think that touches on another point, because prior to working in this industry, I was probably like your average UK consumer in the sense that I opened a student account with the bank that my parents had always banked at and was the local branch in town where I grew up, and just didn't question it throughout university, etc. I spent a bit of time abroad, so just went along with the general recommendation of whoever it was in whatever the student body was in Germany or France, where I spent a bit of time, and generally just viewed it as a sort of deposit holding commodity that gave me a card that made it easy to take out cash as it was then, and spend on card as well. Working in the industry has given me exposure to the art of the possible and the technological innovation that is happening. And I think it's a real shame that more people that don't have the benefit of the exposure to the kinds of things that we take for granted day in, day out, don't get exposure to that. Now, there are lots of tech companies, particularly in the youth banking space, that are trying to drive along the financial literacy and the financial education agenda. I would really like to see for children that are in their formative years, I mean, mine are 3 and 6, so a bit young yet, but certainly more of an emphasis. And I think there's lots of scope. And financial education is just one area. There's lots of areas. I know there are members of the Shift community that are doing things around bill management and utilities management, etc., which obviously has been really, really resonant over the past couple of years and will continue to be so. So I think there's this whole scope to be really creative to solve some of the problems that every consumer and every business in society is already experiencing and will undoubtedly continue to experience in the coming years.
Amazing. I'm really happy that you brought that to a human level of like, it's not this fluff in the clouds which is miles off or some future. It's something that we have the technology for, we just need it distributed. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you everyone for listening. Is there any way the viewers here can support you, follow you? Where's Bankifi going to be? How can they meet you?
So we're in London frequently. Sorry, we're sat here in London now. Although we're based in Manchester, I'm very proud of that. We're in London very frequently. You can reach us via LinkedIn on Bankifi, and then my email address is nick.reid, R-E-I-D, at bankifi.com. So yeah, you can reach us via our social channels, or just come onto our website and contact us there.
Brilliant.
Or through the Shift community.
Or through Shift community and Shift events, that's perfect. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Kyle from Shift Home Finance Community. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for having me.